So if there's one dish that has defined Indian food to the world, it has to be the chicken tikka kebab. And I think there are so many recipes available for us to do yet another recipe of chicken tikka kebab is probably a repetition. But then when you talk about 21 dishes of India, you have to talk about it. This is Ranveer Brar and you're watching India in 21 Recipes. Let's cook a nice, easy, simple and yet tasty chicken tikka. I know we could have started with the chicken, but I just prefer cutting the veggies, just getting that bit out of the way and then focusing on the chicken. A kebab is classically a chunk of meat that's marinated and cooked open. So kebab in itself is a term that originates in the Middle East. So kebab by definition is basically a piece of meat that's cooked over fire. And it's a Middle Eastern, Persian, Mesopotamian, Mongolian, Azerbaijanian sort of a word. And a tikka kebab essentially means a small bite-sized piece of kebab. So if you go to Turkey, the word tikke comes very often. If you go to Azerbaijan, the word tikka comes very often. So the word tikka in chicken tikka basically means bite size. So if you go to a restaurant and they serve you chicken tikka of this size, that's basically in conflict of what it's supposed to mean in the first place. Now you can tell them that. These veggies are not the most important part of a kebab, but they're good for texture, they're good for like a flavor break. I prefer, whenever I'm cooking a chicken tikka, I prefer adding some veggies in the middle. Just breaks the whole thing for me. Otherwise, it's too much meat and too strong a flavor for too long a time on my palate. We marinate them with salt, chili powder. Now I've added mustard oil. You don't need to necessarily add mustard oil. Classically, if you see, most recipes would just have refined oil, but if you're cooking it Punjabi style, when the kebab crossed over from the northwest frontier, Pakhtunkhwa, and reached Punjab, they added more robustness with what was available to them, which was mustard oil. So classically, you would do a chicken tikka with a chicken thigh, but I'm going to use a breast because we're just going to do a leaner version. It gets marinated faster, cooks easily. Do not mix thighs and breasts when you're marinating a chicken tikka, because the chicken thigh or chicken leg takes longer to cook, the breast cooks much faster. So if you're making a chicken tikka from the breast, all of it has to be the breast. Also, if you're making chicken tikka from the breast, it's going to be lean meat, but it's going to dry out faster, which means the marination needs to be richer if you're using the breast and not the leg. All right, let's use the Swiss Modern carving knife and cut out tikka size pieces. So as you can see, I'm sort of just grabbing the meat lightly and I'm not pressurizing the knife. I'm just sort of using the length of the blade of the carving knife to just go back and forth, and the meat's cutting by itself. The idea is to use the sharpness and the length of the blade to good effect. So all I can say is don't go bigger than this when it comes to the size of the tikka. Any smaller and it will dry out. Any bigger, it's going to be too much of a mouthful to actually be a morsel. Now, the trick to a good tikka is 2 marinations. All right, we'll go step by step. We will put in the first marination. The first marination is very important because it allows the meat to relax, lose its flavors and sort of get ready for the real deal. So the first marination is very simple. It's salt, lemon juice and ginger garlic paste. So I'd like to call this the tenderizing marination. This is the marination that would sort of denatures the protein, starts the flavors going. So while the chicken's chilling in the first marination, let's make the second marination. This is hung yogurt that has been put in a muslin cloth or just put in a strainer and left in the refrigerator. It shouldn't be too sour, that's why I said left in the refrigerator. If you leave it outside, it might get too sour. If you do not have hung yogurt, you could use a mixture of Greek yogurt and ricotta. But cream the ricotta really well so that the grains get mashed out, evened out, and then add a little bit of Greek yogurt for the lactic acid feel to it. Yeah? Let's add the spices now. Chili powder for color, right? I'm adding a lot of chili powder. It's not spicy. It's typically for color. Asafoetida, coriander powder, not a lot. I'm usually a big fan, but we'll leave it here. Salt, not too much. Mustard oil, again not too much. There's already mustard oil in the veggies. And I'm going to add a very interesting ingredient. This is bhune chane ka besan. So basically this is this ground to a fine powder. So toasted Bengal gram ground to a fine powder. It's an important ingredient for tandoori marinations because the meat tends to lose water and the marination tends to fall off when you're cooking it on an open fire. So bhune chane ka besan sort of keeps it together without giving it too much of a flavor of its own. This is like talcum texture. I'm going to add a little bit of ginger garlic paste, not too much. There's already stuff in the first marination. And now we're just going to mix. Beautiful. Now it would depend on how tart your yogurt is. If your yogurt is tart, slightly tart, it's good. Very tart, not good. But if your yogurt is not tart, right, then you need to add a little bit of lemon juice to the second marination as well. My yogurt is tart enough, I'm not going to add. Now we take the chicken from the first marination, squeeze it, drop it in the second marination. Now squeezing is important because you already added salt in the first marination. Salt would draw out the excess water, so we just need to get rid of it before we put it in the second marination. Nice. You know, another good addition to this marination would be cream cheese. Just soft cream cheese, add a little bit of that along with the yogurt. Outstanding. So like I said, you could leave the chicken in the first marination for an hour. If you're using red meat, leave it for like 5-6 hours. If you're using fish tikka, if you're making fish tikka, leave it for 20 minutes. But all the tikkas, whether it's a fish tikka, chicken tikka, lamb tikka, all tikkas need to have 2 marinations. It's just that depending on the strength of the meat, the duration of the marination will vary. Now to my veggies, I'm going to add some kasuri methi. Here you are. The reason we've used an oil-based marination for the veggies is otherwise it will be very difficult for you to find the veggies if they were all marinated the same. You wouldn't know where the chicken stops and the veggies start. That's why we used oil-based marination for the veggies. You could also use red, yellow bell peppers if you want. I'm just using tomato for the red color and green bell peppers for green. Now you could take this chicken tikka kebab and put it on an open fire, or you could just put it on a griller, pan, air fryer, oven, any way you'd like. But the trick here is that the outer heat has to be heavy. So if you're cooking it in the oven, then cook it at 190 plus because the crust needs to form. If you're cooking it on a pan, make sure it forms a nice crust. If you're cooking it in an air fryer, make sure the air fryer is preheated. Now, because this is chicken breast, you have to make sure that you're basting it and you're basting it well, adding fat to it and consistently, otherwise it'll dry out. I use a mixture of chili oil, a little bit of cream and ghee to baste my chicken tikka. You could create your own mixture. As long as you're basting it, you're good. A sprinkle of chaat masala. This is optional. Perfect. Now, because we haven't cooked it on a char broiler or in a tandoor, just to give it the smoky flavor, we're going to take some charcoal, add a little bit of ghee to it. And let the smoke seep through the atmosphere. Well, you don't wait for me to open it. I think it's time you went, picked up the chicken or fish and made the tikka kebab for yourself, because it's not that difficult. And I'll be back with more recipes only on India in 21 Recipes. See you soon.